One of the few issues with bipartisan support this election season is
criminal justice reform
in the current criminal justice system.
Crime, prison, jail,
punishment,
and incarceration.
Many candidates from across the political spectrum have come together to recognize that the tough-on-crime criminal justice approach of the past couple of decades has failed miserably. Both Republicans and Democrats point out that there are 1.5 million Americans in U.S. state and federal prisons. And since the enactment in the 1980s of mandatory minimum sentencing laws, the federal prison population has increased by more than 850%. The U.S. incarcerates its citizens at a rate that is more than 5 times the world average. What explains this massive increase in incarceration? Candidates from both sides of the aisle identify the war on drugs as a primary culprit. Between 1980 and 2010, the likelihood of being sent to prison for a drug-related crime rose by 350%. Mandatory minimum sentences have resulted in decades-long prison sentences for basic drug possession. This overcriminalization of victimless activities has had a massively detrimental impact, especially on poor and minority communities across the country, some of which see more than 1 in 10 of their residents in prison. White people make up 64% of the U.S. population, but only 31% of the prison population, whereas black people make up 14% of the general population, but a whopping 36% of the prison population. Black males have a 1 in 4 chance of going to jail at some point in their lives. A big reason for this fact is that black people are much more likely than whites to be prosecuted for drug crimes, despite consuming drugs at the same rate as white people. Both Republican and Democratic candidates have proposed criminal justice reforms to address this overcriminalization and racial disparity. These range from ending mandatory minimum sentences to promoting the use of drug courts and treatment centers instead of traditional courts and prisons.
Drug courts work. Some people look at them and say, well, it's the judge becoming a social worker. It's not true at all.
Some candidates have even called for the decriminalization of marijuana.
The time is long overdue for us to remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Yet, there are still candidates who oppose reform. They point out that the 1.5 million prisoners is the smallest total prison population since 2005. They also argue that violent crime, not drug crime, is the primary driver of prison population growth. So what do you think? Should the criminal justice system be reformed? And if so, how?